For centuries, we gazed at the stars and asked, "Are we alone?" The answer arrived not with a greeting, but with an ultimatum. They called themselves the Collective, a hive mind, a single, unified consciousness spanning 1,000 worlds. Their logic was flawless, their power absolute. They arrived in our solar system, their ships like geometric impossibilities against the void, and delivered a simple message: assimilate or be erased. To them, it wasn't an act of cruelty, it was an act of mercy. They saw us as a chaotic, self-destructive species, a symphony of discord. Our individuality, our emotions, our art, our conflicts, it was all just noise to them. By absorbing us, they would grant us peace, purpose, and an end to our suffering. They calculated the probability of our successful resistance at 0.001%. Logically, we should have surrendered. But humanity has never been entirely logical. When their first wave of assimilation drones descended upon New York, they expected fear and surrender. What they got was a traffic jam. People were trying to get a better look, filming on their phones, arguing about parking spots. The drones, designed for efficient, predictable pacification, simply froze. Their processors unable to reconcile the scene with any known combat or surrender protocol. The first drone was taken out not by a high-tech weapon, but by a hot dog vendor who, in a fit of rage over his cart being knocked over, beat it senseless with a frozen sausage. This single, absurd act of defiance became a symbol. It was irrational. It was pointless. And it was glorious. The Collective adapted. They learned that our cities were not just strategic points, but chaotic nests of illogical behavior. So they shifted their strategy to psychological warfare. They broadcast messages of pure logic directly into our minds, demonstrating the futility of our struggle, the mathematical certainty of our demise. They showed us visions of a peaceful, ordered existence within the Collective. No more war, no more hunger, no more heartbreak. It was tempting. For a day, silence fell over the planet. The Collective registered this as the beginning of our acceptance. They were wrong. What they mistook for acceptance was humanity taking a collective deep breath. The next day, the internet, our own global hive mind of chaos, fought back. We didn't counter their logic with superior logic. We countered it with memes. We flooded their psychic channels with cat videos, with Rick Astley, with arguments about whether a hot dog is a sandwich. We sent them our most confusing, philosophical questions, our most heartbreaking poetry, our dumbest jokes. Their unified consciousness, built on pure cold reason, began to experience something it never had before: a system error. They couldn't process the sheer volume of our beautiful, nonsensical, contradictory existence. Individual stories of defiance became legends. There was the grandmother in Kyoto who defeated a squadron of their most advanced infantry units by inviting them in for tea. They were programmed to analyze threats, not to navigate the complex social etiquette of accepting or declining a beverage from a kind old woman. Their logic loops fried. There was the heavy metal band in Finland that played a concert on a rooftop during an orbital bombardment. Their music was so loud and chaotic it actively interfered with the Collective's targeting systems. The pilots, part of the hive mind, were experiencing something akin to a migraine. The Collective, for the first time in a million years, was confused. They had conquered species far more advanced than us. They had assimilated beings of pure energy. They had out-strategized civilizations that could manipulate space, but they had never encountered an enemy that weaponized hope, that fought with love, that defied annihilation with a stupid joke. They tried to understand our art, but saw only inefficient data transfer. They tried to understand our love, but saw only a biological imperative for reproduction. They tried to understand our grief, but saw only a pointless expenditure of energy. Their fatal flaw was seeing our flaws as weaknesses. In reality, they were our greatest strengths. Our irrationality made us unpredictable. Our emotions fueled our resilience. Our individuality meant that even if one of us fell, another would rise with a completely different, completely insane idea. We weren't a single, logical army. We were billions of chaotic, independent variables. The turning point came during the battle for Luna. The Collective had established a massive processing core on the moon, designed to finally overwhelm our psychic defenses and force assimilation. They protected it with a fleet that outnumbered our own 100 to 1. Logically, any attack was suicide. So, of course, that's exactly what we did. But we didn't send our warships. We sent a single, ancient space probe Voyager 1. Strapped to it was a new golden record. As the probe drifted toward the collective fleet, they scanned it, expecting a bomb. Instead, it began to broadcast. It wasn't a message of surrender or a declaration of war. It was the sound of a baby's laughter, followed by a symphony orchestra, followed by a stand-up comedy routine, followed by a mother singing a lullaby to her child. It was a concentrated, unfiltered chaos of human experience. For the hive mind, it was the equivalent of 1 billion contradictory voices screaming at once. For a single, fleeting moment, the collective experienced joy and sorrow and confusion and love. They felt what it was like to be human, and it broke them. Not their ships, but their consciousness. Their perfect, logical unity fractured. Ships began to move erratically. Some fled. Some simply shut down. On Earth, the psychic pressure vanished. We had won, not by being stronger or smarter in the way they understood it, but by being stubbornly, gloriously, illogically human. They never came back. Maybe they learned that some things in the universe aren't meant to be calculated. Some things are just meant to be felt. We still look up at the stars, but the question has changed. It's no longer are we alone. Now, we ask, are they ready to hear a good joke? Because if a new threat ever emerges from the darkness, they'll find us waiting, armed with our logical hope, our beautiful chaos, and probably a few frozen sausages. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more explorations of humanity and the cosmos. See you next time.